At first, she doesn't seem like a narcissist at all. In fact, she seems like everything you've been searching for. Confident, warm, deeply interested in you. She mirrors your values, your dreams, even your sense of humor. You feel seen, understood, maybe even chosen. What you don't realize yet is that this initial charm is not genuine empathy, it's strategy. A narcissist's attention feels intoxicating because it's designed to be. It's not connection, it's calculation. Carl Jung once said that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But in the case of the narcissist, the reaction is one-sided. She studies you, learns your emotional triggers, and reflects back the version of herself she knows you'll fall for. You think you're bonding, but she's actually building a psychological map of your vulnerabilities. Every story you share becomes data. Every weakness you reveal becomes leverage for later control. In those early stages, she idealizes you. She praises your intelligence, your strength, your uniqueness. It feels real because it plays to something deep in the human psyche, our need to be acknowledged. But behind the admiration lies a hidden motive, domination through validation. She doesn't admire you for who you are. She admires how you make her feel, powerful, desired, in control. The moment she feels you're emotionally invested, the balance begins to shift. The warmth starts to cool. What once felt like a deep emotional bond slowly morphs into a subtle tension, one you can't quite name. This is where many people get trapped. They confuse intensity for intimacy. They mistake attention for love. The narcissist thrives on this confusion because it keeps you chasing the person she pretended to be. You try harder, give more, hoping to bring back that early magic. But it never returns.
It wasn't love that faded.
It was the illusion. If you ever find yourself feeling like you've been chosen too quickly, too intensely, remember this: genuine connection grows slowly, through honesty and mutual respect. Narcissistic attachment erupts instantly because it's built on fantasy. The difference is profound. One transforms you, the other consumes you. So when someone seems too perfect, too understanding, too fast, pause. Not every light that shines on you comes from the sun. Some are flames meant to burn. Once the illusion of perfect harmony begins to fade, something subtle changes in her tone, her presence, her energy. The woman who once praised you now begins to correct you. The admiration that once felt uplifting transforms into quiet criticism. What began as connection becomes control. It's not an abrupt shift. It's gradual, calculated, almost invisible. That's what makes it so dangerous. You find yourself trying to get back to the version of her who made you feel seen, not realizing that version never truly existed. Psychologically, this is the moment the narcissist mask begins to slip. Jung spoke about the persona, the social face we present to the world, and the shadow that hides beneath it. The narcissist's persona is crafted to perfection, but it cannot survive real intimacy. The closer you get to her truth, the more threatened she feels. Your authenticity exposes her facade, and that's when she retaliates. She starts by twisting small things you say, reshaping them to make you question your own perception. What you remember as a calm conversation, she recalls as an attack. What you meant as honesty, she redefines as insensitivity. Bit by bit, you begin to doubt your own reality. This process is not just manipulation, it's psychological conditioning. She is teaching you to associate speaking your truth with conflict, asserting your needs with guilt, and emotional independence with rejection. It's an inversion of meaning where right becomes wrong and wrong becomes justified. Over time, you begin to adapt, to edit yourself to keep the peace. You start walking on eggshells, hoping that compliance will bring back her warmth. But compliance doesn't restore peace. It feeds her dominance. At a deeper level, the narcissist's need to control stems from a fractured sense of self. She cannot sustain genuine intimacy because she fears it will expose the emptiness within her. So she projects that inner chaos outward, onto you. The more unbalanced you feel, the more secure she becomes. It's a cruel paradox. She gains stability through your instability. When admiration turns into manipulation, remember this truth. You're not losing love, you're losing illusion. The moment you stop chasing her approval, you reclaim your clarity. Don't fight to prove your worth to someone committed to misunderstanding you. Protect your peace. It's the one thing a narcissist can never steal unless you give it away. This is where the emotional game begins. Quiet, calculated, and corrosive. You start to notice how every disagreement somehow becomes your fault. Her words twist around your logic like vines, reshaping your memory until you're no longer sure what actually happened. You apologize just to end the argument, even when you did nothing wrong. That's gaslighting, one of the narcissist's most powerful psychological tools. It's not just about lying, it's about making you lose trust in your own mind. At first you think it's a misunderstanding. You try to explain your perspective, to reason with her, but reasoning only tightens the trap. The narcissist doesn't seek truth. She seeks control. Each conversation is designed not to resolve conflict, but to confuse and exhaust you. She'll say things like, "You're imagining things," or "You're too sensitive," until your confidence erodes. Jung wrote that through pride we are ever deceiving ourselves, and that's exactly what the narcissist exploits, your desire to be fair, to see the best in others. She takes your empathy and turns it into a weapon against you. Then comes guilt, subtle, manipulative guilt. She will remind you of everything she's done for you, every moment you've ever disappointed her, every time you failed to meet her impossible standards. It's not love that keeps you there, it's emotional debt. You start to feel responsible for her moods, her happiness, even her anger. And that's exactly how she maintains her hold, through your own compassion. In this stage, the relationship becomes an invisible cage. The narcissist's goal is to make you so uncertain of your reality that you look to her for emotional guidance, to tell you what's real, what's acceptable, what's true. That's not partnership, that's psychological enslavement. Once she knows she can control your emotions, she owns the rhythm of your thoughts. But here's the paradox. The moment you begin to see the pattern, the illusion starts to break. Awareness is liberation. You don't need to win the argument or prove your truth. You only need to recognize the manipulation for what it is. When someone constantly makes you question your reality, stop defending yourself and start observing them. Because the person who tries hardest to distort your truth is usually the one most afraid of it. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, she begins to pull you away from the world that grounds you. Friends who once offered perspective start to seem less important. Family becomes a source of stress. The people who remind you of who you were before her are subtly discredited, one conversation at a time. It doesn't happen with open confrontation. It happens with quiet suggestion. They don't really understand us, or they've always been jealous of what we have. And because you've already been conditioned to doubt yourself, you start to believe it. What was once a vibrant network of relationships becomes a faint memory, replaced by a single, consuming attachment. This isolation is not accidental, it's strategic. A narcissist thrives in psychological territory, wei. Reishi is the only reference point. Jung observed that the psyche seeks balance, and when one person dominates another's emotional world, that balance is destroyed. The narcissist wants exactly that, to dismantle your internal equilibrium and replace it with dependence. She becomes your compass, your judge, your mirror. You begin to measure your worth through her eyes, and when she withdraws approval, it feels like losing air. At this stage, even your instincts start to turn against you. You feel the tension but can't name it. You sense the manipulation but can't prove it. And so you stay. Not because you're weak, but because your identity has been entangled with hers. That's the deepest form of psychological control, when leaving feels like abandoning yourself. The narcissist feeds on that confusion because it ensures obedience without force. You don't resist, you rationalize. You convince yourself she just needs time, understanding, patience. But the truth is, she doesn't want healing. She wants control to feel safe in her own fractured ego. The philosophical tragedy of this dynamic is that dependency often disguises itself as love. You mistake her intensity for commitment, her possessiveness for care. But love that isolates is not love, it's domination. And the only way to reclaim your freedom is to remember who you were before the manipulation began. When someone tries to make themselves your whole world, step back and see the design. True love expands your world. Narcissistic love makes it smaller. And if your world is shrinking, it's time to walk toward the light that no one else controls. Once the narcissist has secured emotional control and isolated you from your sources of strength, a new phase begins, the devaluation. It's as if she suddenly forgets the person she once claimed to adore. The warmth fades, replaced by cold indifference or quiet disdain. The same qualities she once praised now become ammunition against you. Your confidence is labeled arrogance. Your kindness is dismissed as weakness, and your empathy becomes something she mocks rather than cherishes. You begin to feel invisible in a relationship that once made you feel chosen. Psychologically, this is where the narcissist's internal instability spills into the open. The initial admiration she showed was never love, it was projection. She saw in you what she wished she could be. But admiration soon turns to envy, and envy turns to resentment. You become a mirror reflecting her own inadequacy, and she cannot bear the reflection. So she attacks it. Jung once wrote that what we reject in others often mirrors what we refuse to see in ourselves. For the narcissist, that reflection is intolerable. By demeaning you, she tries to restore her fragile sense of superiority. This stage is deeply confusing for the victim because it contradicts everything you thought was real. You try harder, you give more, love more, explain more, hoping to win back the connection, but every effort only deepens your pain. The more you reach out, the more she withdraws. It's an emotional bait-and-switch that keeps you trapped between hope and humiliation. You start to wonder what changed, not realizing that nothing changed. You're simply seeing the real person behind the mask. Philosophically, this is the moment when illusion collapses, when idealization gives way to truth. The narcissist can't sustain intimacy because intimacy requires equality, and equality threatens her control. What she truly wants is not love, but dominance, not partnership, but worship. When you no longer feed her ego, she must tear you down to feel powerful again. If you ever find yourself shrinking to fit inside someone else's comfort, that's not love. That's erosion. Real love doesn't demand that you become less so another can feel more. When someone starts to devalue your light, don't dim it. Walk away from the shadow that can't stand to see it shine. There comes a point, quiet but undeniable, when the illusion finally breaks. You stop defending her behavior, stop rewriting the story to make it fit the version you once believed in. Something inside you clicks. It's not anger at first, it's clarity. You begin to see patterns you once excused as misunderstandings. The same manipulations, the same emotional cycles, the same emptiness behind her eyes when you ask for empathy. That's when the realization takes hold. This was never love, it was control wrapped in affection. From a psychological perspective, this awakening is the return of your autonomy, the reintegration of your fractured self. Jung described individuation as the process of becoming whole, of reclaiming the parts of ourselves that were lost or suppressed. When you've been with a narcissist, your identity becomes fragmented. You start living through their approval, defining your worth through their reactions. But the moment you begin to observe rather than react, you start reclaiming those lost parts. You rediscover your intuition, your boundaries, your inner voice, the one that was silenced by constant manipulation. Leaving a narcissist is not just a physical act. It's a psychological and spiritual awakening. It's the recognition that you cannot heal in the same environment that made you sick. You realize that closure will never come from them because they are incapable of giving what they never had: accountability, empathy, or remorse. The closure you seek must come from within, from understanding that their behavior was never a reflection of your value, but of their emptiness. And in that moment, you understand something profound. A narcissist only has power when you participate in their illusion. The instant you detach, the performance collapses. She will rage, play the victim, or attempt to reel you back with sudden affection. But none of it holds once you see it for what it is. Awareness is the end of her control. Healing after such a relationship isn't about revenge or proving your worth. It's about remembering that love should never feel like survival. The narcissist loses when you stop reacting, because your silence isn't surrender, it's strength. And when you finally walk away, you don't just escape her, you return to yourself.